The people are both the masters of both the Congress and the courts. Not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who would pervert it. Where the people fear the government, you have tyranny. And where the government fears the people, you have liberty. Thank you for tuning in again. My name is Daniel Hapney. This is The Real Story. Yeah, so much to go over. I was doing some thinking and I was trying to think, what could I bring to you, how could I give you that idea of liberty to be bulletproof, because that's the big change. And so I've got some stuff that I thought was pretty good, and a couple quotes for you, a couple clips, a couple interesting things about how, they're changing the training, let's say, of, the whole, gosh, I guess it started off even before Clinton, the domestic terrorism thing. So what I've got for you, I've got some interesting stuff. One is, I want to tell you a little bit, when I found out about it, I thought I was pretty wowed. And I think, it may not wow you, but it may at least spark, spark thoughts. And that's what I was going to try. So anyway, this has to do with the Phoenix Bureau of the FBI. That's right. The Federal Investigations Bureau. What was important was, back a while ago, they presented to the Maricopa County, that's out there in Arizona, their sheriff's office, they were asking for help in fighting what they were calling domestic terrorism. And so they were going to train law enforcement personnel, which they did, and we'll show you some clips after this, but I wanted to show you some of the things that they passed out. And this that I brought for you is a copy of the Trifold that they brought to give to law enforcement. And the interesting thing that I found interesting anyway, and I'll go over with you, is that this is the if you encounter. Yeah, this is a very important thing. Once again, we're going to train law enforcement, and what we're training them is that what if they encounter individuals? And individuals' certain thoughts and ideas. But I thought it was interesting. Once again, this is what you consider the front of it. And I'm going to go over with you. But I thought it was real interesting. The Joint Terrorism Taskforce. This is, we're going to help, fight terrorism. In this case, domestic terrorism. So, a couple good quotes that I thought was interesting. One is, once again, if you read it, it continues. If you encounter any of the following, call the Joint Terrorism Taskforce. Now remember, this whole terrorism thing, okay, this terrorism thing was brought to us with the lies of like 9/11, let alone Oklahoma City, where when you find out, the number one police officer in Oklahoma, okay, was murdered, shot in the head. And he was saying he was there within minutes of the explosion at the Murrah building, and he said he saw people carrying bombs out of the building. But you go, wait a minute, we were told by our media, controlled by bankers, that our media said that no, there was a truck full of dynamite and explosives, and that's what caused all the damage. Have you been lied to before? Well, anyway, with the thought, this is what they came out, and this is the FBI training information for the law enforcement community. The one I thought was really interesting was they wanted to identify defenders of the United States Constitution. And you got to ask yourself, doesn't every person who joins the military, don't they have to swear an oath? And I'll do it right now for you, viewers. I do solemnly swear to defend the United States Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I wanted you to hear that domestic part, because once again, didn't your president, this new love fest Messiah Obama, didn't he have to redo his thing? When I say redo, his oath. Why is it that we make them take an oath to defend, in this case, protect and preserve the Constitution? And why do all senators and congressmen? And why should our law enforcement? So once again, who are they looking for? And the thing on the front is, if you encounter any of the following. What's the first one they've got? Defenders of the United States Constitution against the federal government and the UN. And they list that as super patriots. Wow, I guess they're not football fans, huh? So for you viewers out there, yeah. So, another thing to look for, they've got multiple categories, and some you say, oh, gee, those, they're valid, but these are the ones that caught me. Make numerous reference to the United States Constitution. Why? Because they feel the Bill of Rights is important, that you're innocent until proven guilty, that you have the freedom of speech. I mean, should we go into the Fourth Amendment, self-incrimination? How about, you need to get a warrant, and why that was important. This goes back to like Magna Carta, okay? Why the Fourth Amendment, Gee, the guys who wrote the Constitution, why did they include the Fourth? Why did they include the Second? We'll go a little bit into the Second. And with this show, we'll stick with the FBI thing right now. So right now, this is the FBI trying to set up the Joint Terrorism Taskforce where they're going to use local law enforcement to find people who are defenders of the U.S. Constitution. Do you understand what I'm saying? And it gets better. Make numerous references to the U.S. Constitution, okay? They also say they're looking for lone individuals. Hey, that guy over there's a loner. Tell the Joint Terrorism Task Force. So now they're spying on us. You probably don't remember, but a little while ago, about 2 years, the United States Air Force says, we put up these KH-11, KH-12, and KH-14 spy satellites, we call them, because they can take extremely good pictures, they can listen into phone calls, all this good stuff you can do from space. Well, they used to look at our enemies, what we considered our enemies on the globe. Now they've taken those satellites and they've pointed them into the United States. So you got to wonder, wireless wiretapping, spying, let's see, Homeland Security being headed up by dual citizens, former KGB, former East German Stasi secret police. And yet, what are we training our law enforcement that anybody who's a defender of the United States Constitution is a threat, once again, a domestic terrorist. But this one got me. This is on, the centerfold anyway of it. And it's the Joint Terrorism Task Force is attempting to identify criminal activities with domestic terrorists. It sounds good, What the heck? In this regard, the purpose of this information sheet is to assist uniformed patrol officers in identifying potential domestic terrorism. Okay, so they're getting us used to not just, hey, it's Al-Qaeda, it's these foreigners with different color skin who speak funny languages, but no, it's that blue-eyed, blonde-haired neighbor next door. Maybe it's that black child next door. Maybe it's that Native American. These are your domestic terrorists. The idea that terrorists, remember George, the guy who always told you the truth? Terrorists. Why are they selling us this over and over? But here's what's interesting. This is the third line down on the center of it, and it's domestic terrorism is defined as, this is how they define it. So if you're a patrol officer, this is what they want you to consider. Groups or individuals operating entirely inside the United States, attempting to influence the U.S. government or population to affect political or social change by criminal activity. That's what it says. This is what they're training law enforcement, the FBI, Phoenix Bureau. Let me read it again, just so you get it. Groups or individuals operating entirely inside the United States, attempting to influence U.S. government or population to affect political or social change by engaging in criminal activity. Well, am I wrong to think that we have criminals in our government? And we've had them before. And right now they're getting pretty bad because they're in, the top levels of our government. I mean, if I said Cianci, I'm here in Massachusetts. There's a state next door. It's called Rhode Island. We had one called Cianci next door in Rhode Island. He was a criminal. Okay? We've had criminals before in government. Sad thing, we'll have criminals again. That's why it's good we get to change our government. But the important thing is it's like, attempting to influence the government, in this case, or the population and affect political change. Well, when they steal votes, and there was voter fraud in the 2000 election and stuff, doesn't that affect political and social change? When you change, voter fraud and stuff. How come they weren't arrested as a terrorist? Do you understand all this terrorism police state stuff they're putting upon you? But here you have, once again, this is the trifold. Think about the words and think about this is training.